I want to talk this morning about why enterprise, that sort of, making money through trading, can be a major source of funding. And I'm going to focus on a particular strand of social enterprise, because it comes in all shapes and sizes, but I'm going to focus on community ownership. And I'm going to talk primarily about rural areas, because that's Plunkett's core territory. But many of the principles will apply equally well in urban areas. So just to make sure we're all on the same page, what do we mean by social enterprise? There's a definition up there, basically a business with primarily social objectives whose surpluses are principally reinvested for that purpose in the business or in the community, rather than being driven by the need to maximize profit for shareholders and owners. I mean, that's the standard definition that was adopted by the government about 10 years ago. I'm not terribly good at keeping up with the whirlwind of government these days, so it may well have been replaced by something sort of more achingly meaningful or more media-friendly. But I think it's actually a very useful definition. And I think the point about it is that making a profit is not a dirty word. In fact, these things are often called non-profit organizations, which in social enterprise terms is an absolute nonsense. Because if you're not making a profit, or as it calls it, a surplus, you're not getting anywhere. So anyway, so why are you all here? Are you worried about loss of funding? There's one problem, quite common in rural communities, the sort of loss of rural services. If they're privately owned shops, pubs, whatever, and the owners run out of money, normal response is to shut it. It's public sector owned. When the local authority or the NHS runs out of money, well, again, the normal response is to close it or at least reduce it. So what we would advocate is you look at the community ownership model, where you still need money, but you need community action, and the community has control. So you have your options, you either do nothing or take control. And it's not just about the, we've gone too far. We go back. Here we are. It's actually pretty much the same thing if you're starting a new service. You haven't got a particular service going. Again, if it's going to be privately owned, no one's going to come in unless there's a return for the benefit of the investor, the owner, and usually only the investors or the owner. Public sector, we know they're very short of money for new services, and we know that also in some cases, public sector organizations can actually be pretty unresponsive to local needs. I was going to digress at this moment about the saga of Mid-Devon District Council and its complete incompetence when it comes to increasing recycling collections, but I would go on for that for far too long, so I won't. Again, you're with community ownership, very responsive. I'll come and talk about the advantages in a moment. But a key is the community has control. So it's the same thing, do nothing or take control. Now we'll have a commercial. Here's another picture of a man with a beard. And that's good old Sir Horace Plunkett, who founded the Plunkett Foundation as long ago as 1919. He was a great cooperator, hot on sort of agricultural cooperation in particular. He also dabbled in politics, absolutely hopeless at it. He was negotiating in the sort of run-up to Irish partition, but he kept going, supposedly on the sort of Irish side, but he kept going and leaking details of confidential discussions to the king, which didn't go down terribly well. So his legacy really is about promoting cooperative and what we now call social enterprises. And our focus these days very much is specializing in community ownership. We've been behind the community shops program, for example. We're interested in pubs, local food enterprises, but we'll actually offer advice on any community business sector. We've been delivering the Village Core program, which helps rural communities set up community-owned shops. We're the lead partner for the Making Local Food Work program, which is exploring ways of making locally produced food more accessible. That's a major lottery-funded program. And we're also the lead partner on delivering the support elements of Village SOS, which you may have come across. Again, another lottery-funded program, and that's offering communities support for all sorts of regeneration projects. We carry out research to influence government and others about the advantages of what we preach. Despite our names, Foundation, we do not have lots of money to give away. We try and get money from others and add some value to it by turning it into programs, but we ourselves are not rich. Yeah, okay. Enough of the history. We will get there. But I think just a first very important note. As I'm going to try and show, a community ownership model can be applied to all sorts of social enterprise. But what we found is that successful enterprises don't just happen. They actually need a lot of support at the outset so that people are building a really sort of sustainable business model. In other words, something that will go for the long term, something that won't collapse the moment you take away the initial financial support. And that's hugely important, and that sort of initial support does have to be funded, and that's why the sort of support that's made possible by funders such as the Big Lottery and the large charitable trusts are so important. So let's just have a look at some of the examples of what community-owned enterprises can deliver for you. Shops, community-owned shops. I mean, I'm aware of 5 in North Yorkshire. There's a little over 260, I think, in England as a whole. So, you know, it's far from saturation point. There's still plenty of opportunities. Pubs, cooperatively owned pubs. Only about half a dozen at the moment. One of the better-known ones is here in Yorkshire, the George and Dragon in Hudswell, where even the local MP, who sort of moonlights as Foreign Secretary, is a community shareholder. Community transport. Several operators in North Yorkshire. Example, Selby District Community Transport, the Little Red Bus based in Harrogate, works with partners in the Craven District and elsewhere. Major player in the community transport sector. Community-supported agriculture, where you've got individuals buying a stake in the holding, and in return they get fresh local produce at a competitive price. Community-owned cafes, you find them often tacked onto a shop. Brilliant. Even got community-owned football club. There's one in Manchester, which is owned and run by its 2,000-odd members. It's open to everyone. Everyone's an equal co-owner, holding one voting share in the club. Sounds a bit different from the Premier League. So if that's all a bit too pleasure-seeking, you know, there's some serious things as well. I mean, personal care. I mean, the government wants to see more taken on from local authorities, from the NHS. But actually, there's a history of social enterprises taking on care services long before the sort of present government push. Waste recycling, from small scale to quite large organizations taking on local authority contracts. Energy generation. Again, more example. There's a hydro project in Settle in Yorkshire, producing power for 50 homes, making an annual profit, which it reinvests. There's a community cooperative in Clapham, also in Yorkshire, which was formed to convert used cooking oil into biodiesel. And I mean, the impetus from that was a sort of local organic farmer, well, it was his local cooperative market garden, in fact, who saw the potential of using biodiesel to fuel his sort of organic delivery vehicles. And we're seeing now community wind farm schemes, community solar schemes. Broadband,